start losing and stop giving. I remember I gave it time, all of my time. Now my mind's lost in its thoughts. I want you want only you, but my heart's all tied up in knots. Wanna release it, 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 wanna release it.
Tell me why'd you have to go and drive me so crazy? Now I'm feeling lost without you, and I just can't be without you, baby. Want you all night long, want you all night long. Tell me why'd you have to go and drive me so crazy? Now I'm feeling lost without you, and I just can't be without you, baby. Want you all night long, want you all night long, want you all night, 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 want you all night. Tell me why'd you have to go and drive me so crazy? Now I'm feeling lost without you, and I just can't be without you, baby. Want you all night long, want you all night long. Baby, now I'm feeling lost without you, and I just can't be without you, baby. Want you all night long, want you all night long. Give me all your love, baby. Give me all your love, baby. Give me all your love, all your love, all your love. Give me all your love, baby. Give me all your love, baby. Give me all your love, all your love.
Hello and welcome. We are just kicking off our third and final batching day episode with the amazing Ram. We'll get stuck into that soon. If you're brand new to the Sparkle world, I'm Sally Sparks Cousins, and this is our batching day for our podcast that happens each and every month on the third Thursday or Friday of the month, depends on where you are in the world. It's Friday here in my world. It's been Thursday for our last two guests, but our guest this session is actually in the same time zone. Whoa, how awesome. We've had some great guests popping in today to share some stories with us. We began the session talking about paid ads with the amazing Brandon. Megan came in and we were supposed to talk about messaging, but we went off onto all sorts of tangents and that was absolutely awesome. And next we have the fabulous Ram, where we're going to be talking about how to get unstuck as a business owner. I am so excited to have Ram on. I've been stalking him over on Insta for a really long time. We did a shared Insta stream a little while ago, and I'm like, we so totally need to get you on our podcast, and he's here. But if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our live broadcasts, then you want to head to the Sparkle Class Academy /calendar. It'll give you links to the live streams, links to the training, and all the fun stuff that we do here inside the Sparkle world. But without further ado, let me talk to you a little bit about our guest that I have on for our last session today. Today's guest, he is a design director, a 2-time author, speaker, creative live instructor, a decision-making business coach, and approved advisor. And he's based in Sydney, same time zone as me. Woo! His focus is to help business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders to get unstuck through human-centered design methodologies, creative strategy, digital marketing, and branding. And you know, I love good branding. That's why I think I just love listening to what this guy has to say. For 16 years, he has been working with some really global agencies, and he's worked with people like Audi, McDonald's, Qantas, Google, Amex, Toyota, Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton. He's been featured in Apple, GE, Communication Arts, How Magazine, Creative Live. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And he was also in the American Institute of Design. But look, let me get him to tell you more about how awesome he is. Let's bring on our amazing guest, Ram. Hi, Ram.
Sally, hey, good to see you.
Good to
Thanks
see
for having
you.
me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to have you here on Straight Talk with Sally. Now, we have a great topic, and I know it's something that you really, really love to talk about. But before we dig into your zone of genius, I want to ask you a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your background and why it is that, what brought you to this point in your life doing what it is that you do. Now, I don't know if you can hear the noise in the background right now. That's the coffee machine. So that's what it is. But fresh coffee for me. Thank you very much, husband. Everyone should have a Danny hashtag. Anyway, Ram, so tell us a little bit about you. You know, what brought you to where you are today?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me, Sally. Pleasure to be on the show. I, would say that my story begins before me. My family, originally I'm from the Philippines. My dad is one of 11, if you can believe that. My mum is one of 5. And growing up for them, it was pretty tough. I mean, not going to sugarcoat it. My dad, his father passed away when my dad was 3 years old. And his mum passed away when he was in uni. And that does something to one's perspective when you hear, your parents had this type of lifestyle that you can't even comprehend. Mum, her father wasn't really ever around, and so she grew up with her mum that took care of 5 kids basically, and she had a little corner store. So her mum, my grandma, had a little corner store, sold snacks and bags of milk, distributing and sectioning off distributing one carton for the local community every morning. To that type of corner store. Had a sewing machine, so she was the real entrepreneur, my grandma. My dad, he finished marine transportation and mechanical engineering, 2 degrees, and both my parents really, as most Filipinos back then, third world country, and it's it was education as a way out. But we get to Australia. I'm a 1-year-old baby. I'm one of three, and those 2 degrees that my dad completed were not recognized.
Oh
Um,
no.
so he had to work in a little factory. Didn't really have much choice, but also it's not the style that he would complain. He just got on with it. It's very fascinating way of operating. And so I just grew up knowing that I had an opportunity that they didn't have. I didn't really comprehend what it was, but I definitely came from a place of going, you are not on the back foot like them. You have options. Okay.
Yeah.
One story that stood out that I think influenced a lot of my trajectory and the path that I've gone, which is design thinking, human-centered design, is that I remember I was 4 years old. My mum was cooking spaghetti in our little apartment. I was about 4. I would collect empty tissue boxes, toilet paper rolls, cardboard, build stuff. I'd just, we didn't have iPads or anything back then, right?
Yeah.
So she said to me, Ram, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she's like cooking, and I can almost still smell the memory. And I said, I don't know, Mum, I just want to make stuff. And she stopped cooking, put a hand on my shoulder, and she said, look, Ram, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, just make sure you dream big.
Oh.
Make sure you dream much, much bigger. And that is a key, because I didn't even realize how important that was in a world where there are a lot of expectations, subconscious or not. My mum was just, go for it, try it, see how you go. Now, I was crap in a lot of sports and activities. I was always on the B grade or C grade, but my mum's just like, just try it. Just always. I'm like, oh, Mum, I think I want to try guitar. Great, try it. I want to pick up basketball. Go for it. Oh, I want to try tennis now, or I want to try this now, or whatever. Have fun. Go for it. Like, there was no feeling of like, you can't do that. And that really is important for anyone that wants to pursue a creative career. And I believe there's creativity in everything. My definition of creativity is 3 words: making unconventional connections. So don't think that you're in a position where there's no creativity in. No, there is. The sheer uniqueness of everyone's path and everyone's upbringing, I believe there is creativity and innovation in how you are wired, simply because of the journey you've taken. But I'll then fast forward to, studying design, because I couldn't afford it. My parents could not afford to take me to, and I'll say it was Billy Blue. I wanted to go there. At the time, it was 45K. Now I think it's like 80K, 90K. My
Wow.
parents could
Yeah,
afford to take me there. No way. But I applied for scholarships. I got into this sort of no-name brand college that wasn't even known for offering a design course.
Yeah.
I got it. I got that scholarship, luckily enough, studied it. And that was the springboard. I ended up working at Ogilvy in the mailroom, bottom of the barrel stuff here. And people were like, why are you working there? And they were like, you graduated under scholarship. You're talented. You've got, decent portfolio out of college. And I'm like, I just didn't see things the way that most people did. I was like, well, no, I've got to earn my stripes. I've got to, I got to meet people. I've got to expose myself. And when lots of, people have that sort of expectation, I feel that I didn't. I needed to learn. And I think being in the mailroom, for week 1, I was exposed to 4 levels at Ogilvy. There was literally like 4 levels. And it was meeting 300 people in the first week. Because you're in the mailroom, you meet people's names. You have to know their names. I was a fly on the wall. Yes, I would scrub crap if I needed to in the toilet, because you were also an errand boy, and you would do dry cleaning for people, and you would just fix light bulbs. You would change printer toner. You would order drinks. You would do everything. But that, again, it comes back to playing a really long game.
Mm.
And I believe that, and I'll park it here. It's this idea that whether it's solving a business problem, a brand or marketing initiative problem, a customer acquisition problem, a life design problem, you might be stuck in your life on a personal level. If you use design thinking methods, which are techniques to reverse engineer a desired outcome, you will leave with a more informed and empowered way of operating, decision making. I have a method that I'd like to share as well, some stage in this interview,
Yeah, for sure. Well,
as well
definitely.
as just a basic design method as well. So
Yeah.
that's a bit about me.
I love, wow. First off, what a great mum for just saying, go for it. Like, try everything. As you grow up, I guess now you look back and that's how you can appreciate when you have such supporting parents like that. And I I hear you like working in the mailroom and working your way up, but you've put yourself in a place where some people come out of uni and they want to be almost like running the company, or the assistant to the head of whatever department, but you've gone in with the right mindset. And the mailroom, you've got to know every level, every person, but you get to be that fly on the wall, right? You get to watch and learn and interact. And I'm sure you were like a sponge in there as well, learning from all of these, amazing people and creative people. What a great start, though. And look, I mean, I didn't go to university until I was in my 30s. I was a bit of a bad girl in my 20s. But I think when you're brought up through hard times, or even when those hard times are stories of your family history as well, they're kind of ingrained in you. But then your resilience to kind of go forth and to create something for yourself like what you have. I mean, you've done some amazing things, and you're not even halfway through your life. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more. So thank you for sharing that, because I think where we come from, our history, our path, our upbringing, it plays a huge role in how we move forward, whether it's good or bad or struggle or whatever. But to hear you speak about it and to watch your expressions, you really appreciate where you've come from, and that's just wonderful. So thank you for sharing that. We are here to dive into a lot of your methodologies, which I'm super excited. I know my team are like, they can't wait for this episode. So they're all like watching. We've actually got two team members. My podcast manager's from the Philippines, so you would have been dealing with Ma, and she's like, Filipinos represent. But our topic today is about how to get unstuck as a business owner. So my first question for you is, what are the signs that you're actually stuck as a business owner?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because on one end, there's options overload. And by the way, you'll often hear me speak about spectrums of things to get a gauge, to get a pulse check, a baseline. So when we talk about stuckness or getting stuck, one end, there's a version of feeling overloaded. You have prioritization challenges. You have analysis paralysis. There's a version of that on one end. On the other end, there is feelings of not knowing what options are even available to you, not even knowing what's on the table, not knowing what makes up your decision-making compass. So, criteria, and feeling completely lost in that regard. So there's overwhelm also in both of those pockets. Signs of getting stuck really is that it's the, do you feel that you have too much and too many choices gets you absolutely frozen. You don't act because there is an overwhelm of choice. And then So whatever that looks like, that might mean that, one person's in your ear, you've got your own thoughts, you know, the numbers are suggesting another thing, but you might not be agreeing with the numbers. And I refer to numbers a lot in business because it's really data that leads a lot of what's fact versus feeling. You have a hypothesis when you make decisions. It's our job to prove or disprove that hypothesis. So we are always testing. That's the thing.
Mm.
And so the
Yeah.
goal is to continually prove or disprove best case scenarios, worst case scenarios. So I think that's the other thing. It's not having a clear, and this is part of my one of my methods, but not having a clear criteria, which is one of the three pillars of a method that I have. But your back's against the wall in some way, shape, or form. That's when you know you're stuck.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis, too many choices. Like, people are listening to all the influencers and all the courses they could buy and all the choices that they have, and use this piece of software, be on this social media platform. And then you're just like, but which one's the right one? How do you choose?
Yes.
Yeah, and we hear it all the time. As you had definitely helped people within the the mindset space, and I'm in the tech realm of automation, and people are like overwhelmed with which piece of tech do I choose. But then once they get in and they choose the tech, it's like, now where do we go on social media? YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and all the things. And then they've got 10,000 different ideas of a product, but which one should I try?
Exactly right.
It's so overwhelming. And, as creative entrepreneurs, we're always wanting to create things as well, which we tend to be really good at starting things, not as good at finishing things either, right?
Yeah, that's right. So,
I would love to know more, about
yeah,
your pillars, because, I love a good methodology, a good framework, right? That's how, and first off, before we even go on to that, what I love, the one thing that was like, gave me goosebumps, you said numbers. Me and sexy numbers, because data makes decisions, and smart people don't put their head in the sand as business owners, right? Sure, we've got to make choices, but if we don't use numbers and data, we're just kind of guessing things. So when you said that, like literally goosebumps on the back of my neck. So we can be friends long time.
Yeah, it's so important.
So important. So tell me more about your pillars. I love a good framework and methodology. And I'm sure this is going to be super helpful to everybody listening and watching.
Yeah, well, I want listeners to walk away with at least two. But this one I'll first mention is called the lightning bolt method. It's a method that I sort of coined that would help non-formally trained designers use some form of a design thinking approach. And so it's effectively three overlapping circles. It's a Venn diagram, so to speak, but three pillars is another way of looking at it. The first pillar is interrogating your objectives. I'll list them all out and then I'll explain. Interrogating your objectives, number one. Number two is curating your criteria. And number three is dismantling obstacles. Now, I'll go back to number one and just sort of sweep this. The interrogating objectives piece is critical because it's not just about identifying what you want. You need to interrogate it. So another way of interrogating the objective is, what is the minimum viable version of what you want? Very important. So let's ground ourselves with a measured outcome. So that's why interrogating, it's not just identifying, do that, but interrogate. The second is curating criteria, which I was sort of alluding to with the stuckness, because when we don't have a list of criteria, and it's a literal list, you're making decisions based on this list. The way to look at criteria for me the curating criteria bit is, again, don't identify it only, curate down to what is your non-negotiable. That layer of non-negotiability is going to help you curate your criteria. So, for example, don't say to me that I've got all the time in the world, I'm willing to give blood, sweat, and tears, and then I'm willing to invest time, money, energy. But then when we audit your calendar or your schedule or your commitments, you're a family, father or mother, you've got 3 kids, they're in different, levels of schooling, and when we break down your schedule, you don't have all the time in the world. And then when you talk about money, you don't have all the money in the world that a venture capitalist might have. You're still in very early stage in your business life cycle as well. So we've got to get very clear as to what you're willing to negotiate. Another way of looking at that is, what are you willing to pay to get it? The third area is dismantling your obstacles. And the way I look at dismantling it is pulling apart the challenge in search for the source of it, the root cause. Now, takes, for example, I don't have the contacts. Well, it's like, well, let's pull that apart here. Like, who do you need to meet? Oh, I need to meet someone that can get me access to, I don't know, this type of person. Well, just this goes back to the beginning as well. Identify who it is. What is the non-negotiable there that you need and that they need? And what is the root cause of you meeting that person? So I don't know, I think of someone like Kelly Slater, who I had on my show, and 11-time world surf champ. I didn't just get into his circle of influence. I went out. And this is exactly like the mailroom long-term play. You've got to consider that there are many side steps. A soccer player doesn't go to the goal straight. Sometimes they go back, side to side. It's never a straight line. So what is your side to side play? That is dismantling obstacles as well. It's a side step, not a forward step. So what is the challenge? You might go, I don't have, common one is, Ram, I don't have the money to do that yet. Very common problem. Well, then I go, well, how much do you need? And then I even go further. What will you do with that money? When people are now we're in inflation, heavy inflation right now. I often hear people go, where do I put this $5,000, let's say? And, once upon a time, that was everything to me. Like I was cheering for $500, but I say to people, you're all looking at it through just a stocks, property, like, yes, diversify your portfolio, all that stuff. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, not giving advice, but those are common strategic investment options. But then I go, how about you upskill yourself? How about you literally use that 5K to educate yourself? And I've seen it. I've seen people use that to learn a course or to take a course, an accreditation, anything from, Google has so many jobs right now, and it literally can take you to what course they want you to study online, and a starting salary of like 89K. And so it's kind of like there are different ways, but you've got to first identify from the beginning what is your absolute critical objective. What's the minimum version of that? What's the criteria behind that, the non-negotiables, and then dismantle the obstacles, really pull it apart. And if you're upskilling, let's say, how much do you need to upskill? If you need money, how much money do you need for now? What's the runway for that allocation of funding? Because you might find that, when you go, I wish I had more money, you might find that the reason why you're stuck is because you're hitting that exact mark that you've said. You've said a mark that is unclear. So you're hitting around the mark, you're not hitting the actual mark.
Look, I'm taking notes, and I love it. I love this type of conversation and the philosophy behind people's thought processes and the way we kind of all use our grey matter and the way we think. I mean, starting with that interrogation, and you're like, it's the minimum viable option. So if we take it to what I do in automating and, you know, dreaming about tags and squiggly lines and all the things, to me, it's the fastest path, right? So what is the fastest path if somebody was to say yes at every single step? That's the minimum viable option to me. What's the quickest way to get them there? So like as you're working through, I'm like, yeah, my little brain's going, oh yeah, that's how that kind of integrates to what we do here in the Sparkle world. And then the curation, that, you know, the list of things. So the what if they don't take the straight path? You know, what then? Where are we going to send them? And then make a list of all the things that we want to send them to. Like if they say no at the conversation, or they say no at the free training, or, you know, where do we go? And then you've got the obstacles, which are like the money. I mean, money is a huge thing. And what I loved is how you broke down, people just throw the word money out there, right? I don't have the money. Really? I had a client once, or a prospect it was, who said, this was back when my program was only $2,000. I can't afford you. Next week, she went and bought a $20,000 tens machine.
There you go.
Yet she couldn't afford me to help her with her automation and marketing. It was like,
So even on that, it's very, very important. And for those listening, you can take this sort of sequence of questioning and you can note this down or replay this, but it's underneath what we're talking about. There's another sort of sequence of questions. It's, what are you looking to achieve? Okay. The more important question that I think makes this first question, what are you looking to achieve, powerful, is how do we know when you've achieved it? You need to answer that. Otherwise, what you're looking to achieve is just fleeting and it's not measured. So what are you looking to achieve? How do we know when you've achieved it? The third question is, what are you willing to pay to get it, which is what we're talking about. And remember, inaction is also presenting itself a whole other gamut of consequences.
Definitely.
Okay, that's another thing. Like lack of accountability. Regret is also a pain point that you might not feel now, but it's a bigger one later. So what are you willing to pay to get it? Time, money, energy. This grounds you, I would think, and as has been said by a lot of the clients I work with, very quickly. And then there's this fourth pocket, which is what is your propensity for change and willingness to explore? Because it doesn't matter if you've watched or heard a lot of content or read a lot of helpful content of people that might have done what you want to do, or speaking to an advisor like myself, or a thought leader like Sally in specific things. But if there's no propensity for change and there is no willingness to explore, no one can help you.
Yeah. You've got to be open and willing, like emotionally intelligent enough to know that something needs to change. Because if you continue to repeat the same cycle,
yes,
blame your circumstances, blame the things around you, nothing's going to change unless you start to look inwards.
Well, one of the concepts that has helped me personally with my decision making that anyone can adopt, and it's widely used in psychology and therapy. It's a AAA method, 3 A's: awareness, acceptance, action.
Mm-hmm.
And this is key, because if you are struggling to act, you have now this framework that you can reflect upon to understand, why am I not taking action? Well, did you accept the thing that you had just been made aware of? So there's an awareness piece. Are you even aware of the thing? If not, start there. Bring awareness. Have certain experts and support networks and professionals to help guide your thinking. to bring certain barriers and challenges to the surface. Because if you can't run from it, it's not sustainable. What is the blocker? It might be a belief that's no longer serving you, all that stuff. But it might be an actual, like, no, it's a tactical thing. I don't know how to manage my finances. I don't know about projections. I don't know about, capital, I don't know, capital gains. I don't know about, cost of customer acquisition versus expenditure. I don't know my runway. I don't know how much, like, learn. So what is it that you need to be aware about? And then the acceptance piece, the way I look at acceptance is when you are now aware of the thing, the other way to look at acceptance is, do you agree with it?
That's
It's a
huge.
huge.
Yeah.
Do you agree with it though? You can be made aware of something,
And just nod and like,
but do you agree? Because until these first two A's happen, aware, accept, no action will ever occur.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one thing that's come to mind as you were talking there.
Yeah. Look, and that in that acceptance part, that's huge because people could guide you and tell you certain things. And this is where I truly believe everyone should have a coach. Even a coach should have a coach. I mean, Tony Robbins, the coach of all coaches, has at least 7 coaches himself. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for, I literally have a budget every year for a coach because we don't know what we don't know. And we get so stuck in our own, map of the world, the way we think and see things. If we don't have an outsider guide us to show us the way, we just get stuck in repeating patterns. And especially if they're not serving you, they're not serving you. And I truly, like, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, there's a big difference between somebody who calls themselves a business owner and a real entrepreneur. I believe a real entrepreneur is open to change, open to learning more about themselves. And sometimes it's intimidating, some of the things that we can learn about ourselves that we're like, oh my God, do I really do that? And you don't even want to admit it to yourself. But once you're aware and you can accept that, maybe that's something I can improve on, that's when you can take action and change. And that is it's a huge thing. And that's why there are very few that actually become successful, is because I think it all comes back to mindset. And yeah, sure, there's what price are you going to pay? And that may not be money. It may be time to learn the thing that you need to learn. And everything in business is a trade-off of money or time. Everything. You got to say, do I want to just put the time into it, or do I want to spend the money to save time? And I could talk to you all day about this stuff. Like, we could seriously, we got to go sit down, have a coffee, and just talk around a fire and chat about all this philosophy and design thinking. And I love the way you've kind of framed it and the way you've built this framework around it to explain it in actually a really beautiful way. I love the way I'm very simple. I write like a 5th grader. But I love the way you explain it with beautiful words, but also very easy to understand. That is allowing other people to, like, for me, as you're explaining things, I'm putting myself in the story and thinking, am I doing that? Or is that something I need to improve upon? So you've got a really beautiful way of explaining design thinking. For somebody who is thinking about what is design thinking, what is it? Like, because some people might hear that word and go, design thinking? Like, is he a graphic designer?
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah.
So design thinking is a methodology. It's a you could look at it as a process, a way of working, a way of problem solving. Okay, there's no one framework, so to speak, but like I said, it's a way of operating, a way of approaching a problem. Okay, with that in mind, therefore, there's lots of tools. A question is a tool. Empathy map is a tool, and affinity mapping is a tool. And again, you can Google what these all mean, but I'll unpack one important sort of broad overarching approach. But underneath it, it's also got attributes such as co-design. Okay, co-design means collaborating, bringing multiple voices and people, humans, to the decision-making table so that we can listen well, so that we're not introducing bias, that we're not introducing our own point of view, so that we're not creating something, business, product, marketing campaign, insert whatever here, we're not inserting, creating the thing just from our point of view, where we're designing for, right? A lot of the times we're designing for, but but we're also designing with. And so here it is. A very common design thinking method is 5 parts. It's empathize. We're literally listening and understanding and bringing empathy into who we're looking to know more about. We don't even go into other phases yet until we know who we're talking to and understanding them, have a conversation with them. The second is define problem statements. Okay, so let's look at it as a define. But what you're doing is when you've understood and you've had conversations with a cohort of people, what happens is they talk about their problems. There will be what we call insights. There will be different overlapping versions of a problem. So there's now bucketing these problems into themes. So we want to list all the problems, and then we want to prioritize them from most important to solve to least. We score. We grab what they've said and we turn them into problem statements, and then we score them. We then grab the biggest, most impactful problem that you can solve or service. Might be an underserviced marketplace or a gap that you go, wow, yeah, that problem isn't being served well right now. Grab it. You go to the third bucket, the third area, which is ideate. So we're simply coming up with ideas. That's the fun part. You're conceptualizing. Let your ideas go mad there. Don't come up with an idea yet if you've not got the idea anchored to a problem statement. And the only way that you can do that is if you've gone and if you've understood the person, the human being. And I'll give you some examples here, okay?
Yeah.
But I'll go through this method. The fourth out of 5 parts is to prototype. Now, don't get confused. Prototype isn't just for, if you're listening, you're going, oh, is it an app? Is it a website? Prototype is simply like a version of the thing. It could be literally a sketch. Yes, it could be a slide on a mood board. That's already the beginning of a prototype, right? You don't need to go buy a 3D printer and build a physical thing. Even just you can start to give a representation. That's already a prototype. Okay, you look at GoFundMe. Spend an hour on GoFundMe and look at all the amazing stuff they've got there. They've got physical stuff, but then they've got stuff that isn't made, and they're just talking about it. And there are videos that just give the impression. That's already a prototype. They're talking about it. Okay, this is how it works. This is how it will work. And then the fifth and final is to test. You're basically deploying the thing. You're testing it. You're creating the small version of it, and you're then deploying that in the marketplace to gather data and information, qualitative and quantitative data. Qualitative is the actual raw numbers of the thing. Quantitative is all the behavioral stuff, the observed, right? The scenario, the context that numbers cannot, that makes the numbers make sense, makes the numbers be relevant rather. Then you go back. So after those 5 parts, you go back. You might go back to the beginning. You might not. You might go straight back into part 3, which is more ideas. So this is not a linear method.
Yeah.
It's fluid. And it's always, the word you got to always keep in the back of your head is iterative. We
Yeah.
are always iterating. That's why Facebook updates every 5 seconds. That's why things change. That's why we've got
Yeah.
updates.
And our business will not look the same as it does now in a year's time, because we're all growing, we're all changing as humans and within our business. Our clientele changes as well. Like, I think back to the first types of people we used to look after compared to now, totally different, because we're constantly doing the same things. The first part of what you explained, saying there about, you know, it made me think of the book Traction. Like, we run our meetings, right? IDS, identify, and then we number, which is the thing that we need to work on the most in this team meeting. Then we discuss it. So all the brain power comes together and ideas are just thrown out there. No, nothing said is a wrong thing. Everybody gets to be seen, heard, and loved and appreciated for their ideas. And then we solve. Once we solve, it's who's going to do the things, right? And then once we've done, we then come back and we track it, we review it, we make sure that, was it a good choice? Was it not a good choice? Like, so we are constantly testing. It never ends. And I always say, like, and learning, right? Always be learning. I'll be learning till the day I'm dying, and then I'll be learning how to do that well. Like, it never stops, right? Student hat on every day, like today. Like, notes. You should see how many Post-it notes I've got around me now without discussion.
You've got to take a photo of it.
I will totally take a photo and show you guys all of my notes that I'm taking here. So it's really interesting how you creating, right, within your mind, a process. And there are so many different frameworks and formulas and choices out there of what frameworks and formulas you're going to choose. But choose one, right? Pick something. Find a mentor, find a coach, find somebody who has done what you want to do or has a proven track record for helping people like you, and then follow their recipe. Because, like your recipe, it's the way you've taken all the ideas of all the people that you follow and look up to, right? And you've created your own recipe. We all have that. And you've got a very articulate way, I have to say, of explaining your methodology. And I am huge into frameworks. I love good methodologies and frameworks, and then pulling them apart and seeing which little bits can I add into my recipe, right?
And see, even this 5-part thing, this 5-part design thinking method, it's broad, but it's still so easy to adopt. And there is a not just we should just operate on logic, but there is an easy logic. Because if you don't understand, so I'll give you one example. One of my businesses, I'm part of 11 different ventures and businesses, and one of them is Sydney Tennis Community, it's called. And I only picked up tennis properly 2 years ago, sort of quarter way into the pandemic. And I switched the gym. So again, right? So let's go from empathy. Mid-30s, adult, used to go to the gym. Pandemic happened. Okay, so what's happening? What's the behavior that's happening? People want to exercise outdoors, let's say. So then I take up a sport that I've never really formally picked up. You know, you hit around in the kid as a kid, but I was like, no, I want to give this a crack. So I take on a coach and I'm learning about tennis. And then when I find out to learn tennis, there's 2 ways. There's one-to-one coaching, which is 1 hour. Then there is group. But again, that's 1 hour, but they're predominantly sort of young kids or teens. And I'm like, who's servicing adults, specifically adult beginners? I then get in touch with this guy online who's in Sydney. He's grew up with Rafael Nadal. His father works for Babolat. He's a Spanish guy that lives in Australia and has been living in Australia for about 10 years. Anyway, he goes, mate, I want to learn about digital marketing and branding and design. Can you help me? And I go, yeah, well, can you help me with coaching, teaching me about tennis? Sorry. And then he goes, yeah, let's do a little bit of a trade. So I was like happy with that. He's teaching me tennis. I'm teaching him after our lessons about digital marketing and all that. Long and the short of it is I go, mate, a lot of these principles that I'm teaching you, we should apply. So we just did a dummy project. It was never meant to be anything. But I said to him, where do you think that there's a gap in the marketplace as a tennis coach? We arrive at a lot of the camps and the boot campy stuff is for kids, but no one's servicing adults. They who literally they want to learn. So what we hypothesized was 3-hour beginner boot camps for adults. 3 hours. Why? Because they can learn longer than the 1 hour. 1 hour, you're just picking up stuff at the moment. You don't, if you've ever learned tennis, like you're just piecing things together. You need a bigger chunk, but you got a family, you might have commitments. You can't go on a bloody 2-week summer camp like these kids. It's not practical. So long and short of that, we go, right, 3-hour beginner boot camp. We launch it on Eventbrite. Within 24 hours, it sells out.
Oh, awesome.
We literally just put it as $100, 10 people, $1,000, bang, overnight.
Yep.
We're like, and it's a 3-hour boot camp. So $1,000, for 3 hours. And then I was like, shit, I think we're onto something here. Let's launch another one and then another one, another one. They all sold out. Bang, bang, bang. We hadn't done a single boot camp.
Yes. Love that.
Okay.
Validate. Selling it is the best way to validate, right? That's how we create courses. I've never created a course that I haven't sold before I've made it. And then when I sell it, if I don't feel like making it or I didn't get enough sales, I think
cancel it.
Don't do it. And you see people out there years and years and years creating something but never trying to sell it. And then when they've got it, maybe people don't want it.
But here's the thing, like this is, again, why it's so powerful because, and I knew that would resonate with you, Sally, and hopefully listeners too, but there is an empathizing of the who. It's not about you. It's about who it is that you feel is being underserviced. They have a problem. Grab them all. Bam, 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 bam. List. We grabbed one for adults specifically. They are time poor, but they want to learn. They honestly have an appetite to learn, and it's a different activity as well. And it's outdoors. There's all these things that they're concerned about, and they just want to exercise because maybe they've been sitting on the desk Monday to Friday, right? Let's hold these 3-hour boot camps on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. And guess what? That hypothesis with the idea paired with all those things, empathizing, then we grabbed the problem, we ideated this, and then we did a prototype, which was literally just the website. And then we tested, we delivered on that prototype. We tested one beginner's boot camp, took photos, videos, then added believability to the rest. We're now like 16 boot camps or more, 20, I think, almost in. The only capital that we needed to spend was the like $15 an hour for the tennis court. Yeah. We don't even own a tennis court. We just rented one out.
So awesome.
And so we turned, what's that? $45 for the 3 hours into $1,000.
Yes.
In 3 hours.
Yep.
This is what I'm getting at as the power of design thinking. So don't go around thinking that I just don't have enough money. I don't have this. We didn't we didn't need our own tennis court. We didn't need a lot of capital for a website yet. We didn't need a huge budget for video. So this is why also my lightning bolt method is so powerful. It's like, what is the minimum version you're trying to achieve? What's the smallest version of it? Right? Then there is the criteria. What's the non-negotiables there? Because there's criteria, Andy, he's my business partner for this, the coach, he has stuff on as well. I've got stuff on. So we don't have all the time in the world. So we made it. No, we'll only do it on Saturday Arvos and Sunday Arvos, and we'll alternate it even once a month. Start there. You can increase and decrease anything anyway. And then what is the challenges? Well, biggest challenge is probably the rain. You can't control that, but we capture there. We build that in, and we say, full refund if it rains. No questions asked.
Simple.
It's just break it apart.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah. No. I love it. I love ideas, people. Like I said, I could sit here and we could talk stories and share for hours. I feel like we're kindred spirits, seriously. Like I really I love the way you think about things. And I'm always saying to my team, I love ideas people. Like, don't be scared to share ideas. And I hate when people go, oh, this could be stupid, but no, just say the thing.
Yeah.
I would prefer to hear it than you hold it inside. It could be the best thing ever. But if we don't put it out there, if we don't discuss it, if we don't talk around it, think of all the different objectives, all the obstacles, all the things, and then we still won't have all the answers. That's why that ideation where we're constantly improving, or in I got educated to be a teacher, pedagogy, continuous improvement. I remember when I first looked at that word, I'm like, I felt really smart because I know what pedagogy means.
I didn't even know what that meant.
There you go. Oh, wow. I taught you something today. Excellent.
I learned something.
Yeah, pedagogy as a teacher, when you're studying to become a teacher, I went and did my master's in education, and I heard the word pedagogy. I'm like, what is this fancy word? It just means continuous improvement, but the teachers use it all the time.
I love it.
There you go. So word of the day. Awesome. Well, I mean, I would love to have you back as another, I think we could do a whole nother topic on another whole thing, definitely. But we also have a section where it's called the Sparkle questions, all right? So it's a little bit more about you when we move into the Sparkle segment. So what I'd like to know is, what is one common myth about your profession that maybe you would like to debunk? Like, what are people think about your profession that you would like to debunk?
Oh my gosh. There's probably a few, but one that comes to mind is, I guess in the design world, I still feel that there is a misunderstanding. But we covered it at the beginning. Design as a discipline, whatever you put before or after it, graphic design, interior design, service design, customer experience design, user experience design, whatever you put in front of it, it still stems from the notion that design is a way of understanding and reverse engineering a solution to a problem. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a way of thinking, it's a way of operating. And that's why I think when people go, I could never be a designer, I can't draw. It's very common. I don't know why. I'm like, drawing is the last phase of any sort of process.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
So yeah, that.
Oh, fabulous. Because I've got my degree in communication design. And so I like to take people's crazy word, or when I used to do graphic design, I think communication design, because we take people's ideas and we communicate it through as few words and really good pictures. Like, you don't put an orange and then put the word orange underneath it. That's not great design. But I think that's another reason why I like the way you work is everything's designed. Like, literally everywhere you look, the way businesses are made, the way you think, like, it isn't just pretty pictures, right? That's what people assume design is. It is so much more than that. It's an experience. Like, design is creating experience in all ways, shapes and forms. I loved infographic design. Like, that was one of my most favorite subjects at uni, because I hate words. Don't let me read a book. I'll listen. If somebody writes me a real like, I had an email come in from a client the other day, and it was really long, and I gave it to Kat, and she sent it back with 3 dot points because I didn't want to read it.
Well, it's so funny because even like that, one of the core principles, let's call it, of design, no matter what discipline, is make it easy. Another one is make me feel safe. Another one is help me understand.
Mm-hmm.
And see, these are all, now it doesn't matter how it lives, whether it's walking through a beautiful building, or space, and that is urban design, or whether it's a website and I'm literally navigating the digital space. It's a beautiful thing to understand that I believe that everyone can adopt. So
Yes.
hopefully we've been able to unpack some of that today.
I hope so. I hope that people see whatever it is that they're doing, whether you're a mindset coach or, you train dogs or whatever it is you do, there is design in that. There's a methodology, there is a process that you put behind that. And design isn't, I can't draw.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. My next question is, what are 3 people that have helped to support and inspire you along the way?
Yeah. So you obviously heard the first one, my mum, hands down.
Yes.
There's one quick story that I need to share about her, if I may. It's very
Oh,
quick. The
definitely.
the first time I launched my book called How to Get a Job as a Designer in 2014, I did a USA speaking tour. I did 22 cities in 3 months across
Oh,
the United States. When I got back, my mum greeted me at the airport, and this was also important because I missed Christmas, and as Filipinos, it's a massive deal. It's like 80 people at your house, and that's like only a quarter of your family. And I missed that for the first time. And I got back, mum and dad were at the airport, and mum said to me, "How does it feel, Ram? How does it feel to climb up that mountain?" And then I said, looked at my mum, I said, "Feels pretty good, mum." And she said, "Well, make sure you come back down and share to everyone what you found."
oh,
And that is very important for anyone because we need people to keep our heads in the clouds. Yes, dream big, like what my mum did, or anyone that has ever supported you. Yes, dream big, but keep your feet on the ground. So that's a massive lesson that I try to continue to live and hold onto very closely. The second person is my first ever career mentor. His name's Ian Wingrove. He's not big on social. He's not a public guy, but he's one of the most simple, humble, successful people that I've ever met till this day. And in short, he was the guy that allowed me to go to his studio at 15 at grade 10 work experience in Sydney. Anyway, you've got to look for work experience for 2 weeks. Everyone rejected me, tails between my legs. Back then we had the white pages, so I'm looking through. I'm on letter W, and my careers advisor's like, "Don't give up. What did you get up to?" I go, "Letter W." So and then one he goes, "Hey, I'll sit with you. We'll keep calling," because I tried so hard to get a place, and no one would accept a high schooler, yet let alone a 15-year-old high schooler. They only accept university interns for work experience. Anyway, I called Wingrove Design, and he's like, "Come into the studio," and he was the first one that gave me a chance.
oh,
He back then was designing the 2000 Olympics, Sydney 2000 Olympics branding, and he had come from designing, for Vogue and all these magazines in New York, and he's an Aussie guy. But then he started his own studio. So there's a lot to do with him, is how he helped navigate my career. And then look, the other person I think would have to be, I've got so many. I guess, yeah. There's a lot of people, but I'll just, everyone on my podcast I've ever spoken to have just helped me shape my thinking. Um, I interviewed Patrick Moradoglu recently, Serena Williams' coach, and he taught me about coaching in a way that I've never heard it. You know, I spoke to global head of Visa, David Lee, global head of creative at Squarespace, global head of design at Nike. All these people, anyone that you can ever get your hands on that can pour into you, it just accumulates your own internal equity, so to speak.
yeah.
There's too many to name for the third one, so
Yeah,
I had.
okay. I'm glad your mum's in there. That gave me
Yeah,
goosebumps on the back of my neck. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, everyone. When your mum, honestly, she sounds amazing. You know what my mum? I mean, I love my mum. Don't get me wrong, I love my mum. But when I started in business, she told me, stop working so much. Look after your husband.
Oh wow, there you go. Oh my goodness.
So, like, I'm the first in a line of women to actually have a job that
Wow.
didn't stay at home. So I had a lot of like guilt around that when I first started. I ended
Mm,
up in therapy over it because I felt like I had to be doing the laundry and the washing. I literally don't do any of that now. My husband does it all.
wow.
And
Tell her times have changed, Mum.
I know, right? And my mum still lays out the clothes for my dad and puts his socks on and all the things.
Yeah.
My sister, luckily, is 9 years younger than me, so times have changed. But I'm in my
Wow.
kind of mid 40s, and back then it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like you. That's what they expected. My nan did it. My mum did it. They all did it, and I was brought
Dude.
up in that. So, listening to how your mum speaks to you, and I'm like, wow, my mum just tells me to stop working so hard and look after your husband. I do
She
love
does
her
tell me
though.
to
I do
chill
love my
sometimes
mum.
as well, though.
She's real easygoing. She's loud. She's fun. But like I can't talk about finance with her or anything because dad handles all of that, right? So
Right.
yeah, just different family. The way in which we all, I guess, are brought up is totally different.
For sure.
All right, my last question for you is, okay, this is a good one. If you could have stepped into my shoes on the podcast, what's a question that you would have asked yourself?
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is um, how important is trust?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, how important is trust?
I believe trust is everything in business and off the business landscape. Um, Trust is the currency with which I feel is lacking for every type of relationship. And let's focus on business in the context of that. That's why I believe personal branding is so important because underneath that, with which we work with certain types of people, businesses, brands, we're actually asking the question, when I buy you and from you, what does that make me? You are an extension of me and my beliefs. You are an extension of my worldview. And so when we talk about trust, I know that's pretty deep.
Mm.
I actually look at it as I'm still on a journey of understanding it fully. But one of my mentors who I was fortunate enough to interview recently, her name's Rachel Botsman. She's like the Brene Brown of trust. Brene Brown, vulnerability, Rachel Botsman, trust. And she spoke about it I'll just share this very quick um, sort of breaking of what it means. But she explained it as trust is made up of these two parts. The first part is capability, and underneath that capability, there's of course competency and reliability. Can you do the job? Can you do the task? Can you do the thing that you're saying? And then the second part is character. And underneath character, there is, if I can recall, there's integrity and empathy. And so when we operate in business, and this is the now connecting with branding is saying what you do. Marketing is saying what you do. Branding is doing what you say.
Mm.
I'll say that one more time. Marketing is saying what you do. You're projecting a message
Yep.
into the marketplace. Branding is doing what you say. The problem is many brands have a disconnect. They're saying things that they can't back up. So as you operate, whether you're starting a business, you're growing a business, whether you're simmering and you're in establishment and you're building repeatable revenue, look at what you're saying in the world, in the marketplace, and see if you, now there's a variable there. You control what you say. So I would rather you say that you're the best at something small and kill that and dominate that space than say something big and you can't follow through. So that would
Yeah.
be
Uh,
some connections there.
yeah. I look. That just made you think. That whole premise of fake it till you make it,
Mm.
but you will be uncovered, you know, especially in the world of, you know, like the internet and social media and all of the things, like having these sorts of conversations that, you know, we can have openly. You can always tell when somebody's scripted or don't, you know, there's this tell that people can have where they're trying to build trust as a salesperson, but eventually all the holes will show. Because if they can't follow through, even if they're telling you all these things, if they can't follow through, enough people will see that they can't follow through.
Well,
And
one thing I get a lot, Sally, is like, how do I become a speaker? As a very
yeah,
tangible example. And then I'm like, are you willing to do your first 20 free talks? Because we have nothing to show for of what you currently have. So just
yeah,
it's almost that simple.
it
And so
is.
the
Yeah,
resistance is what's holding people back. The
yeah,
resistance of what are you willing to pay to get it?
yeah.
It's all,
Well,
all connected.
when I did my coaching certification, because like I was helping people with, you know, marketing, but then I'm like, it's all in
Mm,
the mind, and I didn't want
mm,
to play around in people's grey matter without some frameworks and methodologies. There's
mm.
a certain amount of coaching hours you've got to do to practice,
Yeah.
right? So we coached each other and put in time, and, you know, so we're trading our time for that learning experience.
Yeah.
You create a course, right? You put some beta testers through it. You create software. You put beta testers through it. You've got to check and, you know, test, and
For
then,
sure.
you know, get better at it and use a bit of pedagogy along the way.
Hey, there you go.
Oh,
Borrow that word.
wow. Honestly, like this has been a riveting conversation. My daughter has come home sick from school, and I could literally just sit here for hours and chat with you. So we're going to have to totally do this again. And but I've had a great time. Now, my team, and I know I forgot to do this with Megan. Sorry, team. We'll get her back. But they say I have to get you to fill in this sentence. I am Ram and I sparkle because.
I am Ram and I sparkle because I lead with generosity and follow with care.
Oh, oh, be still my beating heart. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me and for giving of your time. I'm sure it has been super valuable to our audience. Please like and share. If this is super valuable, please share it with other people. I think there is so much in today's session with Ram that honestly you can all implement into your life in some way, shape or form. Now, if anyone wants more information, then we also have some places you can go and see. So Ram's podcast, giantthinkers.podbean.com. We're going to pop all these in the show notes for you as well. But also if you want to follow him on Instagram, I follow him on Instagram. You want to head over to the Giant Thinker on Instagram, and also if you turn off those eyeballs, there we go, and direct to his website. There we go, guys. So all of this is in the show notes. If you want to reach out and be inspired, I would totally recommend that you head on over to Instagram. He's always dropping knowledge bombs. I love it. And thank you so much for joining us today. And
Pleasure.
You're welcome. You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Sally.
I'm so thrilled. Well, thank you everybody who has come to every single session today of the Batching Day for Straight Talk with Sally. If you have been to every session, put Sparkle Lifer in the comments below. Even if you're on the replay, we'll be editing this. They'll be dripped out over the coming weeks. Our podcast does have 3 episodes a week, so totally go and tune in to wherever you listen to your podcast. We're there. And we've had a great lineup of guests today. We've had Brandon on ads, Megan on messaging, and Ram on all of that creative thinking, which, I could have stayed here for hours. But thank you so much, Ram, for joining us. I've had an absolute pleasure. And for everybody else, whoa, somebody's ringing, and that doesn't normally happen. Never let anyone dull your sparkle, and I'll see you all, guys, on our next live stream. Bye for now.
change my mind.